back with another Baby Dude interview. Today, I have three-time dad. I have former NFL linebacker, 10 years. Played with my team mostly for the Vikings, of course. He works radio for the Vikings. He calls college football games for Fox. Today, I have Mr. Ben Leber. Thank you for joining me, Ben.
Hey, Jeff. It is great to be on. I love the purple Vikings hat. I see the purple helmet in the background. This is great. I feel like I'm home, even though that we're kind of like 2,000 miles apart.
So, Ben, you're a dad. You got three
Yes.
kids.
Yes.
You're an NFL linebacker. You have an awesome podcast called Unrestricted. You're working radio. You're doing college football games. Being a dad is tough. Like, how you doing this? How are you making a balance?
Oh, boy. You know, so you have how many kids?
Two.
Okay. So I think the beauty of having kids, unless you have obviously twins or triplets or something, right? It's one at a time. It's like, it truly is baby steps. If somebody would give me a 12 and a 9 and a 6-year-old right now, and just like drop that in my wife and I's lap and we never had kids, I'd want to blow my brains out. Like, there's just no way, right? Like, there's no way. But I guess the beauty of all of it is everything just kind of evolves, and you just, thankfully with time kind of built in, our kids are all 3 years apart. And that was intentional, believe it or not. Like we were really fortunate in the fact that everything that we kind of wanted, like we planned to have kids in the spring. So I didn't have to worry about, am I going to have to miss a game for the birth of a child? So every time that we planned out a kid, it worked. So I was like, hey, I kind of wore that like a badge of honor. I'm like, yeah, I must have just gotten so deep in there that, it's no, I'm just a one shot.
Super swimmers, all that whole deal.
Yeah, swim, everything. Right. And so everything just sort of worked out. And thankfully, with our oldest, I was still playing football at the time. And so we got to like understand what the work-life balance would really look like. And then 2 came along and 3 came along. And so I don't know, I think it's like everything else. You just make it work. And, there's something that I even tell my kids now when they face an obstacle or have a problem. I said, just find a way, guys. Like, there are a lot of ways to do things, and there's a lot of ways to accomplish whatever you're trying to do. It could be schoolwork, it could be whatever. It's like, just find a way. And I think that's, subconsciously, I think all of us parents just have to find a way to make it all work. And so we do. We my wife and I balance a lot of things out, especially now with kids distance learning for half the year.
Well, on that, like you said, your wife and you balance a lot of things out. How do you guys find the balance for yourselves? Now, that's the part of I haven't really asked a lot of that question, like during these interviews, but you saying that, like, it's hard to find time with your wife as well. Like, you work, I work, we have kids, we do all this stuff, and they're like, oh yeah, by the end of the night, we're still married too, right? Like, how do you find time for yourself? It's a pandemic, like, it's been kind of a mess. Like, how do you guys find time for Ben Leber and wife?
Honestly, I don't think we do a great job of it. Even though that with the pandemic, we've been forced to be around each other, but you know how it is. It's just different. It's like when you're around each other in such a domestic role for everybody, I think it's even harder because then, little annoyances can carry on through the day. And all of a sudden now when you put the kids to bed and you are excited for the alone time, it's just sort of spoiled because you're just either irritated with each other or something else came up, So, I would say outside of a pandemic, we did our part to make sure that we go to lunch. All 3 kids in a normal time. We're in school, and we're kind of school empty nesters to the point where even though I might be busy and I like structure, I like organization. I like to know what my day looks like. So once I do that and like, hey, let's go get some lunch. Okay, let's go get some lunch. And just that 45 minutes of that time was great. And then, you incorporate the pandemic, and both my wife and I we enjoy working out, and we enjoy just kind of, staying somewhat fit. So, we've incorporated just workout times together. like, hey, when do you want to work out? And I might do one of those stupid bar classes, or, those like, girly full body exercises that look pretty innocent when you're watching the video, and then you go to do it and I'm just crushed. So, I think just little things like that. And, obviously sharing TV shows, I know a lot of guys and a lot of dads that at the end of the night, them and their wives kind of go separate directions. Hey, the dad wants to watch a game. They want to go watch a TV show that's completely different than their wife. My wife and I, we actually intentionally try to find things that we both like. And so in that downtime, we can actually share that experience, even though we might not be talking to each other. We can still talk about stuff afterwards and kind of break down the show.
What are those shows? I'm just curious.
Oh my gosh. I mean, going all the way back, like Dead to Me.
Okay. I've watched that with my wife for sure. Yep.
Yeah, with Christina Applegate, and the other guy. I hate that I forgot her name, but she was fantastic. So we watched that together, going all the way back. Yellowstone we watched. Ted Lasso we watched. Let's see. Wow, what else was there?
So see where my wife's at. We're like trash reality show type stuff. Like we're watching 90 Day Fiance. Like that's where it gets serious, because you're like we got to find things to watch together. But I'm watching 90 Day Fiance, being like, oh, I'll put the iPad next to me at times to watch the Timberwolves game, or like, but I'm there. I'm trying to be there as much as possible, being like, oh man, this show. But yeah, if you get like a good scripted show, you can go together.
Yeah.
Westworld was a really good one that we watched together, and things like that. But yeah, I think, I forget to think about that. Like I'm always doing this dad talk. How's it with your wives? Like that's a big deal. That's a huge deal. So
it's a huge deal. And, I don't know the right answer to that. I do think, the pandemic has really put everybody in a tailspin, because I do subscribe to the idea that separation is good. Like, hey, you need to, one of you or both of you needs to go to work, get out of the house, go, don't see each other for hours in the day. And I think that's healthy and good. The pandemic, at least for my job and a lot of people's now, you're at home a lot. And so it kind of sucks, there's, just the little annoyances. Like I might be in my office actually doing something, and she's like, pulls me away for 5 minutes because she can't reach a pot or something. Or she like, hey, this light bulb's been out for a while. Why don't you fix it? And it's like, and you know how wives are. It's got to be done like now.
Right.
Like it's got to be done immediately.
Give me a minute. They're like, yeah, I gave you a minute last week. That's
I know. Yeah, I know. We all married the same woman, I think.
Dude, it's the same deal. And like you said, like the love language thing is different. Like my wife and I, we're feeling now we're getting deep here. We fill out this book every Sunday night. It has questions of like how we feel like we could have done today. And I think it helped us a lot, because like, you're right. We kind of like, I say drift, but it makes us talk about things and not just talk about the kids, talk about what we're doing tomorrow. So that's a really good option. Just like we lay in bed, turn off the TV, and answer like 6 questions together. Like that works for us. But yeah, like time apart.
That's a good idea, man. I'm afraid to do that. Because my wife is really brutally honest.
Mine is too. Trust.
And I don't know if I want to know the answers to those questions.
Right. Well, that's the double-edged sword of it. It helps, but
yeah.
Well, what a mess. And then moving on to your like broadcasting, like as a dad, you travel a lot for that. You're calling college football games, and you're going back to Minneapolis to do the K-fan stuff, and which you're great on, by the way. I listen to PA show quite a bit and all those shows. You're one of my favorite ones to listen to. Very insightful and honest, very honest about the team. So that's pretty great. How do you deal with the traveling with the kids? Like, how do you keep them engaged? And
yeah, it's funny, because that's been harder and harder as they've gotten older. Now it really sucks to travel, because I think they understand now. Like, I don't know what it is. I've never really asked them, but I almost wonder if they understand the risk involved. You know what I'm saying? Like, they've watched enough TV shows. I think they're starting to understand mortality and life and like the life cycle. And so there's every time I leave, it'll be like a Thursday night, and I got to leave first thing in the morning Friday, and I'll be saying goodnight, and I'll say like, and like you said, with the Vikings game, I might not be home till late Sunday night after the Vikings game, because a lot of times I'll land and I'll go right to the Vikings game. And so I'll say like, hey, I'll see you Sunday night. And they'll be like, wait, what? They're like, oh, you're traveling again, aren't you? They're like, I forgot it was Thursday night. I'm like, yeah. And they just get so sad, and I'm like, oh, like, it just breaks my heart to like, think about them sort of being emotional about it. Like, I'm fine. I can compartmentalize the fact that dad's going to work. You're good. Mom's taking care of you. Obviously, I trust her. You're going to be in good hands. I'm out. Daddy's got to go make a living. No problem with that. Then you throw in the fact that like, you think about them being sad that you're gone, and it sucks, but it's just one of those things. I guess I get sad about it, and we'll FaceTime, when I'm gone. So technology obviously is great, but at the end of the day, I just tell myself, suck it up, and like, do your job, and don't let emotions get in the way.
It's the heartstrings aspect of it, right? Like, my in-laws live next door. I work from home. I walk my 3-year-old and my 9-month-old baby next door. My 3-year-old, there's some days where I'm literally in the house next to them that he just breaks down. Oh my God, don't leave. This is terrible. Like, he just breaks it down. Like, and I'm like, dude, I'm next door. Like, I'm right there. But like, it also is like, aw, like
I know.
That's my dude. So it's.
And what's crazy about that is like, not to say that my kids didn't do that before, but I think there's a conscious awareness with the older they get, because when they would do that at like 3 years old, it's like, okay, I see you cry and break down when your stuffed animal falls off the shelf, like it's all like, so many things are so trivial when you see them break down. But even like with my 12-year-old daughter, who is in 7th grade, and I think we all remember kind of being that age of, early middle school. I still certainly remember those times in my lives. And to see my 12-year-old in 7th grade, get sad while she's laying in bed when I'm saying goodbye, like, she doesn't get emotional. She's past the trivial shit. So now it's just like, oh my God, you really are like sad, like that I'm leaving, that I think is what kills me.
And I think, you just being a present dad, that shows like what that means. Like, that love is deep for sure. And dads need to be, I think now dads are more involved than they've ever been. And I think it's obviously a great thing. Like, there's stories. My dad has told me he didn't change diapers when I was a kid. And I changed more diapers than I can count. So like, not just the diaper count, but like being active and being there and making sacrifices also to be a dad is a big thing. A lot of people don't do that, but it's a big thing. So like, you sacrificing time with them, you need to make a living, and you're doing your thing. It's not like you're leaving to go to Miami or what, like, just to hang out. So I think it's important that she misses you. That's great. And also sad, but you can.
Well, I guess the converse of that is the contrast of that is, but she's like, peace out later.
You wouldn't want her to be like, sweet dad, bye. Like,
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. I'll see you next week.
Right.
Yeah, that would suck too. That'd suck even worse.
Right. And that's I guess so many double-edged swords all over the place. They're flying around with the wife and the kids. Holy moly. And here's another one you kind of mentioned. I always bring this up with athlete dads that I talk to in an interview is, now add in the kids, add in the wife, add in job, travel, this and that. Then you're staying in good shape, man. Like, fighting the dad bod. Because I didn't realize I had 2 kids, and I've always been fit, work out a lot. Both kids, I gained like 25 pounds, which I've lost both times. Just because I'm like, I want to run with my kids. Like, I want to run around, play basketball, do all that stuff.
Yeah.
How do you find the time, or tell dads, like, as a professional athlete, how do you compete it or like go after it?
I think the easy answer to that is I want to lead by example, and that's always been my leadership style, even when I played. I'll go up in front of the room and give a speech if the coach wants me to talk, but that's not really my wheelhouse. Like my wheelhouse is like, I'll say something, but I want to be a good leader by example first and foremost, because if I'm not, then all those words are hollow. And so, fitness and health and nutrition and wellness and, mental well-being and mental health, I think has always just kind of been an interest of mine, even when I was young. So it's kind of an easy place for me to play around in. And so I make time because I make it a priority, because I want my kids to see me make that part of my persona something that's important, that they should look up to. That I want them to understand that health and fitness is not a vanity thing. It's really I think they see daddy's happier when he's done working out. It's a sense of accomplishment. I think they see me pushing myself. I can talk about pushing yourself. I can talk about all these things, but when they can actually see your dad doing it, and then I guess in a bigger sense, I always think it's important to see your kids work too. Not just working out, but I think it's important that your kids see what you're doing for your job and see your craft and understand that, hey, when I go to tell you that, hey, work is hard, or here, this life lesson, they actually see us doing it. So I just take that health and wellness and fitness in the same way, same approach, that if I'm going to talk about it and I'm going to tell them to make it an important part of their lives as they get older, then mom and dad better be doing it too.
Yeah, I think that's very well said. Make it a priority. I don't typically, I'm not going to the gym here. Everything's still pretty closed down here. It's like the longest I've ever gone without lifting weights or anything like that. I have a treadmill every day. Just get on it. Run a little bit, make it a priority. And my son, my 3-year-old, is like, Daddy working. You damn right.
Yeah.
You damn right.
And it doesn't have to be the same time every day. I think some people get frustrated when they're like, I need to have a set time to do it. And sometimes it has to work out for their schedule. And then they get sort of frustrated when I'm going to beat myself up because I didn't get up at 5 o'clock and I didn't beat the rooster and get on my treadmill or my Peloton or my bike or whatever. And then they don't get in the rest of the day. Like, I think people need to lighten up and just be like, it's fine. Okay. So you slept in that day. Yeah. Like, I don't know, maybe find a time later in the day if you can squeeze one in.
I think that's huge.
Fine.
Exactly right. Squeeze it in somewhere. I'm working, I teach here, and I set my computer while I'm teaching on a treadmill and walk. I just walk.
Yeah.
Which is so boring, and it's not high intensity or anything, but I'm getting 30,000 steps a day just walking while I do that stuff. So just if you can squeeze in 15 minutes, that's better than no minutes, and things like that. That's very well said, dude. I think that's great. Speaking of that, pushing kids in sports. You're a pro athlete.
Yeah.
Where's the line? I've talked to quite a few athletes about this now, of it's hard to draw it back, but you want to kind of push. So I've been to many high school football games. Some parents are awful. It's hard to watch some parents cheer for their kids and rip other kids. And where do you feel, as a former NFL linebacker, that line of nudge, push, pull back? What do you think?
I think I share the same frustrations that every dad feels. You want your kid to go out there and perform well. You want your kid to go out there and enjoy it and, have that proverbial smile on their face while they're doing it. And you're just looking for sparks of passion is all I'm looking for. And I have to check myself though, because when I look at myself when I was a young kid, I was not a super passionate kid when it came to sports. I maybe played sports, and I maybe was involved in an activity, but if I had to be real honest with myself, was I playing it because I was passionate about it, or was I playing it because my friends were doing it and that was just that was the herd I was following? And a lot of times I think it was just the herd I was following. That's just what the neighborhood kids were doing. That's just what my friends were doing. That's what my older brothers did. So that's what I'm doing. Did I really love it? Not really. I mean, I just did it because I was doing it. So I kind of have to keep that in check, because as you will, really soon find out when your kids get older. I mean, and you already know this already, but like your kids are born with a certain personality, and they're just pre-wired, and yes, we can nurture them in certain ways, but our middle kid, our oldest boy, he is not a super competitive kid. Now he competes with taekwondo, single sport, athlete type stuff. He likes golf, he likes baseball, but I think we all know that baseball is more of an individual sport than a team sport. He doesn't like to be mixed up with soccer, basketball, football. It's all too rough and tumble for him. So I've really had to learn a lot about myself of like how to push him, what's he involved, what's he like, what doesn't he like, and I still don't know if I have the right answer. I just think that for all of us, it's a constant oil check of where you're at, because kids are going to change. Always kind of like going back to what you said, be present in the way that they're playing sports too. Like really, when you watch, analyze, does this kid really like it? Like, does he really like doing this stuff? Does he really want to put the work into it? Is he trying to improve? And my youngest boy is like a go-getter, meathead that would run through a brick wall, and so like he's just different. I'm going to have to coach him and look at him differently. And my oldest is a pleaser. She's a classic firstborn. Kind of whatever we ask her to do, she's going to want to do it. And so I just think that we all have to take a step back and not pressure them so much, because they will find their way. They just will. I mean, in the end, because the fact that we're having these conversations and the fact that this is present on a lot of our dads' minds, we're already so much ahead of where our parents were. My dad rarely sat me down and had a powwow after a game and like broke something down and said like, hey, what'd you think about this play? Or what'd you think about this play? Like, it wasn't like that at all. It's like, I played a game, I came home, I ate dinner or whatever, and that was it. Like, we didn't even really talk about it. And I think I turned out okay. I became self-motivated and then just, realized the challenges were super fun and like I enjoyed it. So I didn't need this constant pressure from my dad. So I just kind of like want to take that in too of like, hey, it worked for me to kind of be hands off like my dad did with me. And I should do the same with my kids.
Yeah. It's really interesting. Like, yeah, how different kids need different things. I felt like maybe I needed to be pushed more when I was a kid to play sports. Cause now I'm still in men's leagues playing basketball. And I was like, man, I wish I pushed harder when I was actually playing. Things like that. But it's such a fine line. You're right. Different kids are different personality. Like, some need to be pushed. The thing I've heard a lot is how important the car ride home is from wherever you played with your kids. That conversation sets the tone for like how you kind of go at that specific kid. Like, do you want to break it down with this kid? Do they want that? Does this one just want to listen to music and say you did a great job? Like, it's really a tough. Dad's got it, man. It's hard being a parent.
Yeah, and I would say to the car ride home thing too. I think with a lot of things, I think it's better to be the listener. I mean, yes, you have to poke and prod, questions, but I think more of just like, I don't know, how did you feel you played? What did you, kind of get them to open up and make them self-analyze, as opposed to like, hey, yeah, that third play, boy, and you start breaking down specific plays, like you're not really getting them to engage in their own play. You're just kind of lecturing them, whereas you're like, hey, at halftime, like I really noticed the difference from the first half to the second half. What did you do differently? Like, did you feel different? Did you do something different? Did the coach have a conversation with you? And like, make them really think about, what did I do? What was I doing? What triggered that, or what made me play differently, or whatever. And so, I think just a fair amount of listening too, is really important, because it engages them a lot more in how they play.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough calls, man. Tough calls. Well, I really appreciate you coming on. Do you want to talk about your podcast, Unrestricted, a little bit, and throw that out and tell us what you got rolling on that thing?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, so I started a podcast at the beginning of this last fall, basically, and I really wanted to make it very, very Minnesota centric. I'm trying to be self-aware enough that I'm not a national name. I don't want to go out there and start, trying to get all these national, athletes and people on a podcast and make it really hard on myself. I thought, take some small steps before I take some big leaps. And so I really want to make it a Minnesota centric, interesting people. It can be sports people, it can be business people, it can be anybody that of influence in Minnesota. And that's kind of what I've decided to do. And it's been working out. So my podcast is called Unrestricted with Ben Leber. It's on, iHeart, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. And I've had a state senator on talking about sports betting. I've had a leading expert from medical cannabis, a medical cannabis company here in Minnesota. I've had Kyle Rudolph, a Vikings, former Vikings tight end. I know. But I really want to make it a well-rounded podcast. And so I release one every Monday, and that's it, unrestricted. So thank you.
Yeah, you're doing a great job. The interviews are great. I think the Kyle Rudolph one blew up pretty good, especially in Minnesota for sure. Keep doing what you're doing. And I think you're out there bigger than you think. Just say Just say
well, no, I appreciate that. But, I do think that and this too, there are numerous Fortune 500 companies and Fortune 100 companies in the Twin Cities. And I feel like it's an untapped market for really putting ourselves out there. Like, hey, we're not just about like 10,000 lakes, and we're not just about nice people. Like, we have some cool shit here and really interesting people here, and so why not highlight some of that stuff? We have amazing Michelin star rated chefs, that are home, they live in Minnesota and they have restaurants here. Like, let's get that word out too, and have people hear from them.
It is really a rough thing. Like, living in Los Angeles, like I said, moved here 15 years ago. My wife is from here and she will never do the cold. I love Minnesota. Like, I love Minnesota. I love the state. I love the fishing. The sports teams, obviously, but it has a lot to. Minneapolis is a great city, and people just. You're right. They see the cold. They see the lakes, Mall of America. Minneapolis is awesome. So, yeah, it's a bummer. I think you're doing a great job to highlight it, and it needs it for sure.
Yeah. Well, I don't want it to get too popular, Obviously, we don't want like a whole big influx of people coming and moving here. But no, it's, believe me, it has its warts. Obviously, with the George Floyd stuff that happened over the summer. Who would have thought that Minneapolis, St. Paul is going to be the epicenter for a worldwide social unrest? I mean, it's still like surreal to think about. So we obviously have our warts, but like any other city. And yes, my wife and I talk about moving every winter. It's like, a couple of weeks ago, it was, I don't know, 30 below with wind chill. And we're like, what are we doing? Like, let's look at real estate in Charlotte or Austin or Nashville or something.
I talk to my dad almost daily, and we talk, what's the weather like in LA? I'm like, I'm wearing shorts. I'm feeling good. And then he's like, it's not going to crack 0 today. So enjoy your weather. But
I know. Yeah. Our time in San Diego really spoiled us. I just 4 years and some change, because we wintered down there a couple of years when I was still playing for the Vikes. And, that really changed our perspective of like, hey, life doesn't have to be that difficult. Like you can't just put on flip-flops every day to walk around and go run errands.
And San Diego is so cool. Like, I love going down there. I went to a Twins Padres game a couple of years ago, and they are the nicest fans. They're like, you guys look really good this year. This is really awesome. And I'll go to a Dodger game and I'm going to get ripped everywhere just for wearing a Twins hat. I'm like, we're not rivals. What are you coming after me for? It's so silly. But yeah, San Diego is much more chill and relaxed, nice. So it reminds me of Minnesota a little bit, just like the nice people and things like that, for sure.
Yeah. I miss San Diego. We make it a point to go back every winter, and I love it down there.
Yeah, it's awesome. Again, Ben, thank you so much for doing this interview. This is awesome. As a Vikings fan and a fan of yours and listening to you all the time on the radio, much appreciated, man.
Oh, no problem, man. I'm glad this could work out. And Skol Vikes, man. Good luck to you.
For sure. Baby dude, out.